So welcome to this Athens Town Hall meeting. Tonight our topic is energy, and the title, The Athens Area Response to Energy Challenges. Let me just recall for you that sounds like a better one. When someone said close, someone really meant close. Probably kiss it as you talk and it'll work pretty well. This town hall meeting is sponsored by the Mayor's Office of the City of Athens, Athens City Comprehensive Plan Review and Advisory Committee, the Sierra Club, the League of Women Voters of Athens County, the Athens County Land Use Plan Steering Committee, the executive committees, plural, of the neighborhood associations of Athens, and the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce. This evening we will have, this is the first meeting on energy, town hall meeting, and we're likely to have more later. Lots of you, like me, have lived here a long time. I often reflect that if this was 200 years ago, I would spend most of my waking hours out on a hillside or two of Athens County with hand tools, trying to grow enough fruits, vegetables, and grain to feed myself and my family. I often think about that. And just what are the differences between now and then? And that is primarily a use of energy, and let's say the use of non-human energy. When I was a kid, I did a lot of gardening, spade, hoe, this, that. No mechanized gardening in my family till I was gone. And the difference in that life and the difference in my life now is at least very strongly built upon the use of energy. So a timely topic, most assuredly. This evening we will have 6 panelists who may present for up to 10 minutes. And after each panelist, we'll have I'll call it a brief 6-minute question and answer session. And for the question and answers, we have a microphone down front here. Beverly Flanagan, wave a hand or a mic or something, Beverly. And we're going to give you 30 seconds to ask your question. And we have the best timekeeper in Athens County, Muriel Grimm, over here. Muriel, in 30 seconds, is accurate to plus or minus a tenth of a second. And if you don't know how much that is, the fastest human runners in the world can, in a tenth of a second, can run about this far. A little over 3 feet. And so, and then after that, we will have an announcement by someone from the Athens Climate Action Plan Committee, and then we will open it to general questions on all the topics. So the committee planning had thought it was most appropriate after each presentation to have a little bit to target attention to that, and then a general Q&A at the end. And we'll give you 2 minutes for that, and you can spend your 2 minutes making a statement or ask a question and get a response. If you want an hour, if you want a minute and 45-second answer, you've got a 15-second question. So that's probably enough ado, so let's go ahead. I think a lot of you have schedules, and so topic 1, an overview of energy and ecology, Greg Kramer and Dana Carlson, the Sierra Club.
Put on your seatbelts. We've got 10 minutes to give an overview of energy and ecology. So energy is good. It's done a lot of good things for us, and sometimes when we get into all these talks about ecology, sometimes we forget that without energy, we wouldn't be where we are today. There would be some serious problems. So energy is good, but energy is wasted. In our current system, we have lots of inefficiencies. I've listed production, transmission, use of energy, and extravagant and unnecessary consumption. So we got a bucket with holes in it, and our bucket's getting bigger and we're getting more and more holes, so we really have to focus first on efficiency, plugging those holes. So that's one of the messages we want to get across as the Sierra Club. So cheap energy is a myth. It might be inexpensive at certain times, but except for hanging your clothes on a clothesline or maybe making sun tea using direct solar, cheap energy is definitely a myth. Energy has costs, we understand that, and what we pay is not the real cost. That's a fundamental understanding. So we do have things called externalities. When we think about externalities, one of the big ones is emissions. The big thing you want to notice from this chart is just that this area here is energy. Out of 100%, that's 61.4% of the greenhouse gas emissions according to the World Resources Institute. And the majority is carbon dioxide, but also methane is a large contributor. So energy is a huge part of the greenhouse gas emissions picture. Lots of different places are talking about costs. This is an image from the Insurance Institute, where they have actuaries looking at this, and they're very concerned about the increasing costs of energy from disaster perspective. So we have an issue of climate instability that is happening. Good news, we are getting better at calculating the external costs. So the best resource that I have is a group called Extern-E, European Research Network. And they've done a lot of work looking at all of those things we call external costs and trying to determine for different alternatives what a dollar cost might be. As you know, it's an inexact science, but they've been working on this for quite a while, and they're getting a lot more realistic and feasible in their estimates. And one thing to point out here is that just for the UK, taking one country's example, these are all different countries, these are all different costs. So we have coal and lignite, double or triple the cost of its actual production costs in external costs. So 4 to 7 euro cents per kilowatt hour. Things like wind, a fraction of a cent. You see PV in the countries that have it about 0.5% or a little over. And some of the renewables look much better when you look at them in terms of a real cost. So we do have an increasing amount of data on the external costs, and that is something that can be used. We're also getting better at predicting impacts on climate. And so we have the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which has done a lot of really good work and is finally getting more and more acceptance of that good work. And just a few highlights from some of their work is that we have CO2 and methane, and we can see over the past 650,000 years some steady state levels, and then we see in this last area of time just spikes. And so it's a very graphical way of just seeing that wow, there is a significant or step change in our levels of CO2 and CH4. And if we look at, on a global scale, the temperature, you can say anything you want regionally, but if you look at a global scale, we can say the globally average of the planet is almost a degree warmer than it was, a degree Celsius warmer than it was in 1860. So that data continues to be accumulated. This is a difficult slide to see, I'm sorry, but it's taken directly from the IPCC work. And basically it says that where we're at about now, 430 to 450 ppm, there's a 78% chance that we'll have at least a 2 degrees Celsius increase in temperature. And if we allow that to continue increasing, we get up to 100% chance of 2 degrees Celsius by the time we get to 650. And we have some percentage of, like a 24% chance of seeing 5 degrees C at 650 ppm. So you might have heard of the 350 ppm target. We're currently rising even faster than this, as I'll show in a second. So the more recent data shows that a best estimate for a low scenario is almost 2 degrees Celsius. It's more likely to be closer to 3 degrees Celsius. And if you look at the high scenario, it's somewhere between 2.5 and 6.5 degrees Celsius in terms of the best information we have right now in terms of global temperature increases. And it is moving faster than we expected, and this is some recent data in the last 30 years looking at the trends. And the important thing is that the global greenhouse gas emissions were increasing at 3.3% per year per annum in 2000s versus 1.3% per annum in the 1990s. So it's an increasing rate, which is not good. And the ice melt accelerating significantly. And this, you don't need any statistics to worry about. This is 1941 photo of Muir Glacier, and that's the 2004 photo. So you can't argue statistics and information like that. So in summary, IPCC talks about unequivocal warming of the climate system and Most of the global warming of the past half century is due to increases in greenhouse gases. So they can make some very clear statements based on their scientific information. And so what I would say is the evidence is convincing. And even people like Republican senators associated with the Armed Services Committee are talking about global warming contributing to instability in the world. The argument for change is convincing. We believe that the decisions we make now can make a difference. So if we stay as business as usual, we have increasing emissions and therefore increasing global temperatures. If we cut emissions, the 2% solution is what the Sierra Club talks about. By using wind and solar, both concentrating solar and solar PV, as well as geothermal and biomass and biofuels, we can cut down instead of increasing. And just a reminder that efficiency is the biggest and most easily accessible answer. So I'm going to hand it off to Dana. And essentially, we've got Cool Cities Initiative that started back in 2007, and there's a lot of things on this chart that talk about good things that have happened since that time. And the city's done a really good job of pushing us in the right direction here. The Sierra Club helped enable that to happen. And for the energy audits, we will pull up Dan's town hall.
Yeah. I'm Dana Carlson. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. It's real hard to know all this. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about the fact that it was a group of volunteers who got the city to sign on to the Cool Cities Agreement in 2007. But we were concerned that government was working pretty slowly, and so we wanted to give a little jump start. 10 people volunteered to be trained by COAD. Anybody here not know what COAD is? The Corporation for Appalachian Development, which does weatherization for low-income housing. They trained us to use the NEAT software, which is the National Energy Audit Tool software, to do energy audits. So we were trained to do that, and we did several houses, a couple churches, and this summer we did a huge project, which was the Athens City High School, which is a 4-acre campus and uses a tremendous amount of energy. And so we've just gotten that sort of completed. We're going to be presenting that to the city soon. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about energy audits and what they are and what you can expect if you get one. Because as Greg said, energy efficiency is the low-hanging fruit. This is where you're going to save about 30%. If you don't have to produce that, if you don't have to burn coal to produce it, then you don't have the associated carbon costs with it. So a home energy audit is used to determine how much energy a home consumes and to evaluate what measure can be taken to make it more energy efficient and to save money. The audit is a comprehensive on-site analysis. Okay, this is a blower door. This is a blower door right here, and 12 inches. The average home is 12 inches. It's like having a 12-inch hole in your home if you don't have those leaks sealed up. And this is a thermal camera image, and this maybe cost of weatherization. These are the federal tax credits for energy efficiency, and that's it.
I told you Muriel was very good at that job. She was re-elected unanimously to handle that responsibility. Are there any questions anyone would like to direct at the two presenters at this point about their topic? Yes, please.
Why the spike in NH4? What causes that? I don't know.
Whoops, I should be tossing this, shall I? There you go.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
If you want to get an energy audit, what do you do and how much would it cost?
Okay, well, I can't tell you how much it will cost for sure. Some people, like us, charge about $100. We have other people who, one of our members has just gotten certified as a home energy rater, and he's just getting his, Ron, would you stand up? He's just gotten his certification. You can talk to him. There are other people like R.W. Davis in New Marshfield who charges about $400 to do a blower door and full evaluation.
All right, why don't we go ahead, and we'll note that after all the presentations, there will be further opportunity for questions and comments. So the next presenter from Residential Solar Energy Initiative, Athens City Council Member Elahu Gosney.
I have 9 slides, so hopefully I can get through them. I will try. I thought that tonight I'd give everyone a little bit of information on sort of some background on how we got to where we are today on the Athens Solar Initiative, what it is, and let you know where we are and looking forward what we have still to do, which is quite a bit. Slide. So, of course, when we started off looking at this, Gary Hauser, who many of you know, was the driving force. He came to me and said that he wanted to look at ways the city could play an active role in increasing solar in the city, primarily residential, and we're looking to hopefully expand that. So the goals that we had in mind, of course, were to reduce these greenhouse gas emissions that are spiking way higher than people thought just a few years ago. And if we can create a program that other cities can copy, then we get the multiplier effect. And what we do here in Athens can spread across the state and possibly even further than that. One of the things, of course, you can see 3 of our local energy installers, renewable energy installers up here, Third Sun, Dovetail, and the newest one, Appalachian Renewable Power. So we really have a concentration in our economy of renewable energy companies. So it's really a key location. You know, if we can do it here with these companies close by, it would really be a driving economic force for green jobs. I just wanted to show this. I'm not sure if people you might not be able to see it very well in the back, but it came as a shock to me. So we really do have a lot of sun power here in Ohio. Look at where we're located. The rating is at 1,500, and this is kilowatt hours per kilowatt per year. Central California, where a lot of this groundbreaking work is being done, is at 1,800. So it's not a huge difference in the capacity that we have for renewable energy from the sun. Slide. And of course, you know, this took a huge amount of research into, you know, even what direction did we want to go. We really wanted to start off with a municipal program. We saw a lot of power in that. We looked at, Gary Hauser did a lot of the research. We met with the Ohio Consumers Council. We have someone here from them to speak on a different issue tonight. We met with representatives from Ohio Department of Development. We also have someone who used to be with them here this evening. And so they met, they actually visited Athens, and we discussed what possibilities might exist for this type of a program. And over the past 18 months, there have been a lot of meetings with these types of folks. And just a few months ago, this is an image of Berkeley, California, and some of the solar installations that they do there, they're really ahead of the curve. And one of the reasons they are, slide, please, is that they've recently developed what began to be known as the Berkeley model. This is, now it's currently known as PACE, which is Property Assessed Clean Energy. And it's a very innovative, groundbreaking mechanism to fund renewable energy. In this PACE or Berkeley model, and what we're setting up here in Athens, the city actually gets rid of the largest barrier to renewable energy, which is the upfront cost. So the city would provide the property owner with a loan. In exchange, the property owner agrees to repay that loan through their property tax bill. So it's a voluntary special assessment that jumps the hurdle of the upfront cost for renewable energy. Slide, please. A few of the benefits, you know, this The federal government has been working on energy issues for some time, some of it successfully, a lot more lately, of course. The state has really been taking a leadership role, I think, in the past few years as well. But local governments, I think, struggle to find where they fit into it. And in this type of an approach, it gives power to the local government to take responsibility for the energy that's being used in their community. So that's really one of the strengths that I see here. It ties the system to the house. So many people, they'll move every 5 or 6 years. I think in Athens, I don't know the exact rates here, but if you're not going to live in your house for 15 years, you might not want to invest in a very expensive energy system. In this kind of a setup, the system stays with the home, and the payments stay with the home as well. So they stay with that address, with that property tax bill. Slide, please. So we took this idea to the mayor's office and found out that we would need a change to state law to enable this mechanism. And so he was very interested, and so agreed to fund. We hired an attorney's office out of Columbus to help write the legislation. And we were very lucky. This was when the budget was coming through. And things can take forever to get through the state legislation, but when that budget is through, you have a vehicle to get something passed into law very quickly. And State Senator Jimmy Stewart was very happy to champion this on the Senate side. And State Representative Debbie Phillips, of course, was equally as excited to be able to push this through on the House side. So in a very short amount of time, we brought these laws, thanks to the mayor and everyone else involved. Thank you. And this was signed into law by Strickland on July 17th, so it's very new, very fresh. We've been contacted by other cities that want to know how it's going. Bricker and Eckler, who drafted the legislation, is also running with this, trying to gather other cities that are interested. And it's important to note here that Ohio is now one of about a dozen states that have this mechanism in place. So it's something people are latching onto, and it's really spreading. So I think it's going to be a key part of financing energy, or at least renewable energy in the future. Next slide, please. So that tells you, where we are today. Basically, we have big questions to answer, and we're working with people to try to answer these questions. The program design, who is eligible? Do we expand it to businesses, nonprofits? Do we start with just residents? What do we do with landlords? There's a million questions that we've been discussing at once weekly or biweekly meetings. And how are we going to administer it? This would require the city to either establish a new office or assign new duties to an existing office to be able to deal with the paperwork and that goes along with it. There are remaining questions on the loan terms, and we really won't know that until we have an idea of what financing we'll have, which is the big thing. How are we going to finance this? We're hoping that we'll receive grant money, or at least something similar to a grant. There are grants that you actually have to pay back at some point that would be a possibility to fund this. And another option is bonds. So one of the real powers of this kind of financing is that the city can use bonds that would not affect the city's ability to borrow, because they're guaranteed repayment based on those property assessments. This is ongoing. We had a couple weeks ago. We had a meeting in Columbus. The mayor and the city planner and I. We met with the governor's office and a few other people up there to discuss possible financing and other issues with the plan that we're proposing. And we had a conference call just today. It's very well in the works, but it's evolving, and there's still a lot to go. I would like to say that this is one option we're bringing forward. If you're a homeowner and you want to do solar and you can finance it, I would say do it now. This is going to be a great program, but if you can finance it, there's no reason not to go ahead and get moving on it. But this will provide financing to those that won't have financing otherwise, or that may not want to invest that in the current home they're living in. So I'd be happy to open it up to questions now.
Would it be possible to do the same kind of program for energy efficiency and home modernization?
Mm-hmm. It's a great question, and they are doing that in some places where this is in place. The state laws that were passed were specific to solar, photovoltaics, and thermal. So, and that was because it was going through so quickly. Some people at the state level were uncomfortable with putting everything in there. So I think we can convince them that, that it would be a good direction to go. Great question. We have a question in the front here.
How does the county fit in?
That's a great question. And I see a few faces here that I know live out in the county, and I've talked to other people as well. We've heard from some of the commissioners and talked to them about the program and what possibilities would be available for the county. And we don't yet know. As soon as the city gets this rolling and we can show that it's successful, then the county could possibly become a part of it or start their own program in parallel. So if there's enough interest.
So the loans are going to be on a first come, first served basis. Is there a waiting list for it?
We're not at that point yet. I'm sorry, we don't have a set date yet. We're really scrambling to get the program design in place and then secure financing. But there will be a good amount of notice when we are at that point. Yes.
Yeah, Lalo, if you guys settled on the concept of whether or not a kind of a down payment or minimum amount of cash out of pocket is appropriate?
We haven't. One of the issues that other communities out west have faced is they're rushed with people that want to do it that may not have the suitable rooftop, or they put their name in the ring. They tie up some of the administrator's time, some of the financing that may be available, and then they don't follow through. So they actually suggest that there be some sort of application fee, and we haven't yet decided on what range we would be in for that. Yes.
I want to go back to the 1,500 kilowatt. Could you explain what that means on like the term for the household?
Actually, Jeff, would you mind taking that one? You would be the expert in the room.
Yeah, sure. The question was about what does this map mean? And basically, in the Southwest, there's more sun hours per day. The sun's in the sky longer, and there's less weather between the sun and your solar panels. So what this means is, in Ohio, we measure system sizes in terms of kilowatts. So a residential system might have 5 kilowatts. And so 5 times 1,500 would be the annual kilowatt hours that you would get. So it would be 7,500 kilowatt hours per year.
For a household.
For a household. And then a 10 kW house would have more, a smaller house would have less.
Thank you.
I guess this is a good time to mention we've been in contact with the local installers on a constant basis, and taking up their time and their taking advantage of their expertise. So it's been a great help.
So what would 7,500 kilowatt hours do?
I think my home uses, it's relatively low, relatively small home. I want to say maybe 4,000 kilowatt hours per year. Does that sound about right, Jeff?
Yeah, most people think in terms of dollars, and you ask them what their electric bill is, and they don't have the kilowatt hours memorized, but they know roughly $50 or $30 or $300. So a kilowatt hour costs about 10 cents. So if you're $750 a year, or let's divide that by 12, somebody smarter than me. So if your electric bill is about 60. Yeah, so if you're about $60 a month, then this would offset 100% of your electricity. One of the neat things about solar today is that it's the technology that they're looking at is battery-free, and it can work with the utility power, so it can cut your electric bill in half, or offset 25% or 90%, or something in between. So these systems have a lot of flexibility and flexibility.
And along with that, one of the things that we're looking at is what's the appropriate size? There's a lot of old, inefficient homes here in Athens. If you put a system on that provides 100% of the power, and then they do energy efficiency improvements a year later, then they're producing more power than they use. And that financially, that's not a good idea all the time. So
I think I got a signal. Is that right?
I didn't hear a bell. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guess let's cut that off.
Okay, third presenter with respect to Athens Gas Aggregation Ballot Initiative, it's Andrew Tinkham from the Office of the Ohio Consumers Council. Andrew?
No problem. Thank you very much. I appreciate being invited here today to talk about natural gas aggregation. How many of you, first of all, my name is Andrew Tinkham. I'm with the Office of the Ohio Consumers Council. And we are the residential utility consumer advocate for the state of Ohio. I don't know if many of you have heard of us or not. But what I'm going to talk about today is natural gas aggregation. Have you guys heard of aggregation or natural gas aggregation? Is that a term that you're familiar with, not familiar with? If you certainly said you were not familiar with, I would certainly understand, because this is a part of the state that really hasn't seen much in electric or natural gas aggregation. Northeast Ohio, Northwest Ohio, even Southwest Ohio and Central Ohio have been doing it for a long period of time. We just haven't seen it as much in Southeast Ohio. But we're starting to see some communities look into natural gas and electric aggregation. But I just want to give you some general information about it. So what is aggregation? In Ohio, local communities are allowed by law to join citizens together to buy natural gas as a group. So recently, the Athens City Council has passed an ordinance to create an opt-out aggregation program. So what is opt-out aggregation? Opt-out aggregation requires that opt-out aggregation automatically includes all eligible consumers located in the community except consumers who do not want to participate in the program or who do not qualify. And we'll talk about who doesn't qualify here later in the speech. So what's the next step now that we have an ordinance? Well, if a community chooses to do opt-out aggregation, they must put it on the ballot. So you're going to see it on the ballot, was it the first Tuesday in November. So you have the chance to vote either for or against opt-out aggregation. And if it passes, at that point, the city of Athens will come up with a plan on how to develop and address the aggregation program, and how it will work, and how the local government will oversee the process. Once they have determined that, they are required to have 2 local public hearings in order to obtain residents' input on the program. And that's a good time for consumers to come out and obtain additional information, express their concerns about the program, and have their questions answered. Once they have the public hearings, the City of Athens must become certified through the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio. So at that point, they'll apply with the PUCO, or the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio. Once they receive that approval from the PUCO, the City of Athens can start shopping around and negotiating with the different natural gas suppliers. And at that point, if they find a natural gas supplier and they're comfortable with the rate from one of these natural gas suppliers, at that point, that natural gas supplier will send out a notice with that rate, whether it's variable or fixed, and the terms and conditions of the contract. At that point, as a consumer, you will need to decide if you want to be part of the program. That letter will also include information how to withdraw if you don't want to be part of the program. So there is a way to opt out. That's why they call it opt-out aggregation. If you do not respond or send in the opt-out postcard or the letter saying you don't want to be part of the program, they will automatically enroll you into the natural gas aggregation program. So there's not much work on your part if you want to be part of it. You will receive a second notification from Columbia Gas of Ohio letting you know that your service is going to be switched to this company that the city has decided to use as for the natural gas aggregation program. So you will receive 2 notices, just in case if you receive the letter and maybe someone else opens it and accidentally throws it away, or you didn't really understand the reason why you received it. You will receive another notice from Columbia Gas. Now, the local government does have the option when they're shopping and negotiating with these companies. If they're not happy with the rate that they're getting from these companies, they don't have to act on it. They can just stay put where they're at, and they could shop at a later date. So the city is not, if this is passed, they are not bound to find a supplier. It's not something they have to do if they're not comfortable with the rates that are being provided by these natural gas suppliers. Now, like I said, there are some consumers who are not eligible for the program. Consumers who already participate in the choice program and have a supplier will not receive the notice because you're already with a company and more likely in a contract. And they don't. The natural gas aggregation program doesn't want you to break your contract with the other company. Also, consumers who are on the percentage of income payment plan, have you heard of that, or PIP? Is that term familiar, not familiar? It's a low-income program for low-income consumers who meet certain income guidelines. They would also not be eligible for the program. And that is all I have on it. I'm glad the bell didn't ring. This is something I could talk about for 30 minutes. And there may be a lot of questions out there, and I'm willing to answer them. I would have included some other things, but I didn't want to get the bell rung at me. So it sounds like she's got a fast trigger.
Is Sherry Kuhn in the room? No? Okay. Questions? Welcome.
The concept, of course, is that it's better to buy as a group, like a buying club. I mean, I guess really what you have to tell everybody is what's the advantage and disadvantage by doing this.
Yeah, and that's true. Like I said, it was a very broad presentation because of time constraints. Using an opt-out program, what's beneficial about doing opt-out and including all the residents is that it gives you more buying power. It's like buying a product in bulk, or going to Sam's Club and buying something in bulk. Usually you can get a cheaper price by buying it in bulk. It also eliminates a lot of the marketing and administrative fees from the marketers, where if a marketer is marketing individual consumers through mailings or emails or door-to-door sales, that costs them a little more. By doing natural gas aggregation and taking all the consumers that are eligible, they can usually give you a lower price to the community because they can eliminate that marketing cost. They can eliminate that administrative cost. So by doing opt-out aggregation, usually a community is able to secure a cheaper rate because they're bringing a larger pool of customers. I hope that answers the question or explains that. That's a good question.
Those of us with contracts, when the program starts, assuming it does, when our contract is over, would we be able to join into the city-sponsored program?
It's possible. And it really depends how the city sets up the program. I have heard of other communities where it's an open enrollment, and I've heard of communities where there's certain times of the year where they can enroll in the program. So, but you know what I would do at that point? And boy, I hate to speak for the city of Athens. If this is wrong, let me know. But I would call someone in the city, if you're with a contract and they choose a supplier, and see if it's possible to enroll once your contract expires. The nice thing about the program, it's another choice for you. You already have the choice program, you already have Columbia Gas's rate. This gives you another option. So, I mean, I think more options is better. So. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Not to spend too much more time on it, but years ago, I forget how many years ago it was now, but I think when the choice program first began, there was some company that had some kind of historic connection to Athens or something. And so there was something in the newspaper years and years ago when it first started that they were going to give kind of a little special deal to people from Athens. So it was years ago, so I might not be remembering this right. But there's something like that. So we signed up for it. But that was so many years ago. Now, I don't think we get any kind of like special rate or anything. So it seems like when this starts, if this is a good thing, the whole city of Athens congregated, it should be a better rate than what we're getting as part of the choice program now. So it seems like just because we happened to sign up for it years and years ago, with that company doesn't mean we shouldn't be able to participate in this. It doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah, and if you're not sure if you're on the choice program or not, you can always look at your bill. Usually the second page of Columbia will...
Well, I mean, we are on the choice program.
You're on the choice program.
Why should that mean we can't participate in this? That's the part that
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me.
I think the biggest concern in the way it works is they're concerned that you're going to be breaking a contract with your current company. And there's probably a lot of legal reasons for that, I think. I mean, from what I understand, I'm not an attorney. But, yeah, I think that's some of the concerns, is breaking the contract with another company, especially if that term hasn't expired.
Well, a related question, why would people on the PIP program, low-income people who need lower rates, I don't get why they wouldn't be able to make a choice for this at some point anyway.
Yeah, it's just how the law is written. You know, it's hard for me to really explain why. You know, all the ins and outs about why the PIP customers wouldn't qualify. But yeah, they're just not an eligible group because this is a special payment arrangement for them. They base their payments on their income. So I know what you mean.
But it's still at a higher rate.
Well, yeah, it could be. You never know. It's more at Columbia Gas's rate.
Just wondering if you can give us an idea of about how much of a reduction other cities have seen in their price.
Yeah, that's a good question.
50%?
Just to give you an example of how many communities have aggregated, it's over 150 in Ohio. Cities, villages, counties, townships. You know, I hate to say this, with all the communities, sometimes we don't hear all the rates that they negotiated. You know, usually the cities keep that information to themselves, and so we don't usually obtain that information, what type of savings they receive. So that's a good question, and each year it can change. It all depends. You know, right now natural gas rates are at some of the lowest levels we've seen in at least the 7 years I've worked for our office, and I wish I had an answer to that question. I don't. But it's a good question. Yeah.
Are the rates renegotiated every year? I mean, how often are they renegotiated?
Yeah, and it all depends on what the city sets up. I mean, I would say on average, most of the time, they're 1 year fixed rates, but they may negotiate something different. I've heard some communities in I think it's Columbus, that have had variable rates in the summer and fixed during the winter. Some have opted to go to variable rates, especially when the rates were high and they came down over the last year. But I've seen things all over the board. And I hate to say it, most of the times when I learn about them is reading about them in the newspaper. I hate to say that, but that's usually when we find out about that information.
Again, I want to add a few things. One is, of course, the reason why you're looking at lower savings in theory is because Columbia Gas does distribution, but really can't make money on the supply of gas. So therefore, they have no real vested interest to reduce the rates. The companies that are pursuing your dollar, of course, have an vested interest to do this. Two, I believe Marietta has a gas aggregation plan, and I believe Albany's put one in. Is that correct, Myra?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's time to grab your mic.
So they're working on an aggregation plan as well. I believe there's a site that you can actually compare different gas rates with different companies. If you were in the choice program, compare it, and an apples-to-apples site.
Yeah, you can go to our website. It's www.picocc.org. Pretty easy to remember. If you go out there, we have a comparison chart with all the companies, their current rates, and we update that once a week. So just go out to our website. I think there's an icon on our homepage where you can click on it and obtain those rates. You can also find out which communities have aggregated to on our website.
And the city has changed suppliers of gas. We looked at this earlier in the year. We decided for all the buildings. We went through our bills actually and found out that actually different departments had actually already done the choice. And it's unbeknownst to us at the City Hall, at that point we went to the company and said, okay, what's the status of the contract? And they said, oh, that's 5 years ago. We just kept you on. So therefore, part of the thing with Hoosier is to look at your choice and see where your status is in terms of contract if you want to renegotiate. Or wait, if the ballot passes and if we go for a program. Again, this gives the option. It doesn't mean we're going to actually do it if we don't have to do it. I hope that, sorry to take time.
That's all right. You're the mayor of our great city. You have one. We'll happily make an occasional exception, and that was it. And of course, we can come back to this topic later as far as that's concerned too. So, thank you, Andrew. All right. Our next presentation will be on the topic Ohio University's Energy Profile. Presenter Mike Gabekat of the OU Office of Sustainability.
Hi, I'm Mike Gabekat. I'm the Executive Director of Facilities Management over at the university. I work with Sonia Marcus, who's in the Office of Sustainability. She couldn't be here today, so she asked me to kind of fill in. So with the next slide, we're going to be talking about the, it says energy initiatives, but it's more along the strategy that we're trying to follow at the university. We kind of follow 3 different broad overviews of what we're trying to do. The first one's the low-hanging fruit. I think you heard us talking, or it was talked about before, where we're trying to do energy efficiency by looking at preventive maintenance, which is lubrication, making sure everything's working as efficiently as possible. Maintenance type stuff where we replace old equipment with new that's much more efficient, and anything that, lighting retrofits, which would be upgrading it and be more efficient that way. Next slide. The second initiative is the President's climate commitment that you heard talk about, which is talking about reducing the greenhouse gas emissions and eventually becoming climate neutral. That was just set up by the President to have the President's Advisory Council for Sustainability Planning. That group has just started meeting and is getting input from all different sides, and they'll be putting the plan together on that greenhouse gas emission plan that goes to the association. On the next slide. The next one is the House Bill 251, which the state required us to set a goal to reduce our intensity per gross square footage for how much energy we use on a gross square foot level. Basically how these 3 tie together on the next slide is we've got 3 different areas that everything ties together when you look at it. The ideal, of course, is right in the middle where it hits all 3 of them. So if you look at it, that ideal would be the next one is the solar or photovoltaics, or efficient lighting, not solar voltaics. The efficient lighting hits everything, where we reduce our greenhouse gas, we reduce our energy intensity, and the dollars that we have there, it reduces our dollars spent. The next one that we have would be solar panels, reduce our energy intensity that we have per square foot. The dollar amount that hits, so they're a little expensive right now, so it's not necessarily that cheap, but it does also reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. The next one would be the composting, and we do have the largest in-vessel composter in the nation when it comes to colleges. That hits us on our greenhouse gas emissions, but it definitely doesn't reduce our energy intensity anywhere, and it doesn't reduce our costs. So those are just how the 3 different things that we're looking at, how they tie together and how they don't necessarily all match what we're trying to do. On the next slide, we've got, I got one more. Burn more coal, less natural gas definitely saves us dollars, and I'll talk about that on the energy. Right now, gas costs about 4 times as much as coal when it comes to our energy bills, so that's why it's definitely cheaper to burn more coal, but it doesn't help us on anything else, which is what you see on there, and that's the whole part that we're talking about. Utility spending. When you take a look at it, we're projected this year, our utility bill is about $13 million. If we burn less coal and more gas, that would probably be closer to $21 million, which is why we're burning coal right now. The next slide. These are the greenhouse gas emissions that we have and how we categorize them and how each part adds into it. I believe that the lowest one there is our electricity that we get from AEP. The next one up is the Laoshi heating plant, that middle band that's in there. Then we've got some transportation and some other costs that we put inside there. And that's how the graph hits on there for our greenhouse gas emissions. For the next one we have, here's the weather-adjusted green, this is our energy intensity, how we're calculating based on, for our House Bill 251. As you can see, from 1998 to 2005, we had an energy performance contract that we were spending about $5.7 million on, which actually reduced our energy by over 17% to 2004, or 2005 area. And what's really nice is that House Bill 251 decided to use 2004 as the base year to calculate the 20% reduction that we have to get by 2014. So it makes it real interesting here on the university that we have our best goal, or our best year, that we now have to try and reduce that by 20% or more by 2014. As you can see, we had a chance. We're getting close to the 20% if we started from 1998, but now we're going back up a little bit, and part of that is from new buildings that were added, the programs. We've got more students. We've got different programs that have added and different things, utility, energy-intensive equipment inside the buildings that is coming out for new technology. So then we've got if we look at it here, we've got the 7% now that we've gone up, but we did go down 17. Look at the next slide. And then we keep going there. And there's the 20%. We got to get down to that the low point here. Here's the MMBTU. This is our energy use per square foot. You can see, again, it's the same. It's similar to the greenhouse gas, our electricity, our allow sheet, which is the coal, and the transportation, and the other things on there that we're looking at for our energy usage, our energy intensity. On the next slide, it's basically just the campus, and if we keep clicking through, we'll see that where we burn the coal is at the Laushi heating plant. We'll do there's natural gas in there. We have dual fuel burners for our boilers on one of the boilers or two of the boilers that we have in the plant, so we can convert between the two. We also burn, that's for the electricity. Our 69 kV yard is over here by the Laushi heating plant. We transmit to us at higher voltage so that we have less line losses on campus. And then as we go through again, we've got different places where we burn natural gas and electricity throughout campus that add into that greenhouse gas emission and our energy intensity on campus. The next one, the energy trends. Basically, we've got the price. Part of the increase in cost, of course, is the price of commodities over the years have gone up for our gas, electric, and our coal. Increasing gross square footage on campus, that's part of the thing that adds to our use. We've got coal versus natural gas, of course, that's sitting in there to learn which, right now natural gas is about 4 times as expensive as the coal that we get. New services, we've got more lighting appliances, again, code requirements, things change on what we have to do for each of the buildings. We've got fewer preventive maintenance projects right now that are coming up with the reduction in the budgets and different things like that. Costs for the efficiency projects are increasing, and then there's other projects, other economic factors that tie into how we're trying to put this all together. When you look at the last slide that we have here on the energy plan, one more, we're trying to combat some of these things with the building standards, which would be LEED. We're looking at trying to say that LEED is any new construction that we have on campus would be LEED Silver rated, which relates to our energy use and the greening of the building. The funding for the projects, we're looking at trying to get more projects and more funding based on the energy efficiency type projects and looking at how we're doing, whether we're going to burn coal, how we're going to get rid of coal eventually, how Laushi is going to be converted in the future. Staffing, we're looking at funding to make sure we can maintain our staffing and get our preventive programs in place so that we can keep our efficiency up. And outreach and education, this is kind of what Sonia would be doing right now, would be coming out here talking to people and basically working on campus to increase the knowledge of what we need to do to try and maintain our efficiency and lower our energy usage on campus. So that's basically our energy strategy that we have on campus right now. Are there any questions or comments? The technology that's in that Laushi plant's over 100 years old. It's been here forever. The infrastructure can't change overnight. Now, we're limited. 15 years is about the length of time we have left on this plant, according to the studies and everything that we've done. I'm trying to get some studies done right now to find out where do we go from here? How do we convert it? We don't have enough solar to replace what we have there. What's the next thing that we do to replace the coal? How do we phase it out? And that's what we're looking at right now. I can't give you a date. I don't know the technology that's going to replace it yet, but that's what we're looking at right now.
People remember there was a ballot issue years ago that had to do with coal gasification, which is really nothing new here. The history of the Southern Ohio Electric Company is connected to coal gasification, and there was a plant in Nelsonville in 1873. In fact, Nelsonville was one of the first cities in the United States to have electrification. People realize that. what I'm getting at is, have we looked at coal gasification technologies, which is more efficient with has less externalities as far as I can tell from my readings? And also, are you producing any electricity from the use of coal?
Nothing's off the table. We are looking at everything. Coal gasification was talked about in the past. I've only been here since January, so I can't tell you the whole history behind it. I know that there has been something there looking at all different types of things on a bridging technology from where we are now to where we want to be in the future. That was one of them. And no, we do not generate electricity from the Laushi heating plant. We just generate steam, which we use for heating the buildings and for creating domestic hot water on campus. And in summertime, we use it for air conditioning. We've got some steam absorption chillers on campus.
I would add to that, is it possibly looking at, if you are going to use coal, any amount, or using that as the steam as a power electrical production?
The problem with that right now is we don't have high enough pressure with the current technology to get enough electricity out of it. We're under 100 pounds in the plant, which makes generating electricity very tough right now.
Here's a question. I heard that the smokestacks on campus are exempt from the usual limitations on how much pollution can be coming out of them. Is that true?
Nope, we have to file with the EPA just like everyone else, and we've got limits and requirements that we have with the EPA.
Well, I have a house not too far from campus. It's on West State Street. And there are times, especially on weekends, when I have smelled a really foul smell. I thought there was a fire somewhere. There's a couple of times I called the fire department. And then when it kept happening, I took a walk and I traced it to one of the smokestacks, which was releasing really thick, dark plumes of smoke. And there have been times I've actually had to leave my home on the weekends for several hours until that fire went down. And I wonder if that's, what's going on.
I can't tell you. We don't do anything different on the weekends. There are times when we have
The weekends is when I'm mostly home.
Okay. They're monitored. The emissions are tracked very closely, and there's nothing different on the weekends versus other times.
There's a time when that seems to be happening. Is there someone I could contact that could kind of look into it?
Sonia has worked with us on that. She's got up at the main office there, at the Office of Sustainability.
Okay. And she's in the sustainability office?
Yes, Office of Sustainability works on that with us.
I think we've run out of time on this one until we get to the general questions, or so our absolutely accurate timekeeper says. So we'll come back to those questions. And Mike, thank you very much. And I couldn't help thinking as I was sitting there, what shall I say, well-disciplined group we are in terms of exploring an issue in a very appropriate fashion. And so we ought to be able to get back to that. And our next presentation is going to be Local Energy Initiatives by Rural Action, and Scott Miller of the Rural Action Energy Committee will present. Scott?
Thank you, everybody. I thought I'd start my brief presentation tonight by giving just a real quick overview of Ohio's energy consumption, because we don't really talk about that sometimes. It's important to note that the state of Ohio is a tremendous energy-consuming state. And it's a very complex system. We're the 7th largest energy-consuming state in the nation. We're the 4th highest CO2-emitting state in the nation. 89% of our electricity comes from coal. 10% comes from nuclear, and a little bit less than 1% actually comes from renewables, which is surprising to a lot of folks. A lot of people think that we use a lot more renewables. It's a very complex system, and some of the presentations that we've had tonight have highlighted some of the complexities of the energy system. And as a result of all of that complexity, Rural Action, which is a locally based nonprofit organization, formed an energy committee a couple of years ago to try to unpack some of the issues related to energy production, consumption, and how ordinary people can kind of plug in on all some of these issues. So with that, I've got just a few slides here about the mission. Many of you know, I see a lot of very familiar faces here tonight about Rural Action. We have 20-year history in the area. The mission of the organization is to foster social, economic, and environmental justice in Appalachian, Ohio. We have three core programmatic areas. One is in sustainable forestry, another is in sustainable agriculture, and the third very large program for rural action is in watershed restoration and preservation. About 2.5 years ago, the organization decided to revisit its strategic plan called the Strategy for Rural Renewal Strategy. And basically the way they went about that was very unique. Rural Action is a membership-based organization, and as a membership-based organization, it's very responsive to the needs of its members. So what it did was the organization went out to its members and held a series of house parties around the community, around the region, where folks would invite in friends and relatives and members of the organization and everybody. They just had a series of listening sessions and said, here's our old strategy, and what else should we be thinking about? And a lot of things got put up on the board, a lot of things kind of came out, and one of them was energy. And energy rose to the very top of the agenda, and the organization decided to embrace that 2 years ago at its annual meeting and form an energy committee, which I happened to be at. And they said, at the meeting, they said, break up and sit down, and we'll just start forming into some of these committees. And the energy folks sit over there, and sat down at that table. And Dana Carlson was at that meeting, I believe, and Lois Whaley and some other folks. And we started talking about the issues. And I said, well, we really need to have somebody to chair this group. And I sort of looked around, and they were all looking at me. And so I said, okay, all right, fine. So we formed an energy committee, and it's important to note that this is a series of volunteers. So the next slide. Energy is an emerging programmatic focus for rural action, but we don't have a staff person dedicated to this like we do with watersheds and forestry and agriculture and so on and so forth. So this is a series of volunteers who meet on a regular basis, on a monthly basis, and our next meeting, before I forget, is tomorrow night. So if you're interested in another evening meeting, please join us. Our meetings have been held for the last couple of years up on the ridges in Building 22. And our meeting will start tomorrow night at 5:30, and we usually do have some food. We all chip in a couple of bucks and buy some pizza and soda and so forth just to sustain ourselves. 5:30 to 7 or so. We started off with a small group of about 12 volunteers to talk a little bit about what local citizens can do to reduce our energy costs, lower our carbon footprint, and provide more sustainable options for energy utilization. And that's a big topic. Those are big topic areas. And so we started off by inviting in folks to talk, some experts, regional experts and area experts, folks from the university, folks from the community, to talk about what's going on, how people can plug in, and so on and so forth. And we've identified a series of, over the last couple of years, several programs that we're beginning to work on. Next slide. The first of those that we're very close to rolling out is a park and ride system. You got to remember 2 years ago when we formed, gas was over $4 a gallon, and people were very upset. And so we launched a program at that time to try to identify methods for sharing rides and reducing our gasoline consumption. And so we've worked with Bob Eichenberg, the county commissioner, and the county commissioners, and we've identified a series of 5 to 8 areas around the county where we'd like to establish park and ride centers. There are issues related to that, and that's part of why we haven't completely rolled this out. Some of those revolve around access, liability, trash, and litter. And ODOT has a provision. One of our first thoughts was, well, we'll just have these at rest areas. There's a provision in the Ohio Revised Code that prevents folks from setting up park and rides at rest areas. So what we've done is we're reaching out to churches, local churches, for instance, that have parking lots that are not being used during the week usually. And so we're very close to announcing that program, and that'll be rolling out probably this fall. Next slide, please. We're also very interested, as somebody mentioned, in energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is the low-hanging fruit that everybody always talks about. It's probably the cheapest and most efficient way to reduce your energy costs. We've talked about developing working in conjunction with the Sierra Club and their Cool Cities program and the home energy audits that Dana spoke of ever so briefly, about trying to team up and try to figure out a way for rural action to adapt that program outside of the city limits and provide that service throughout the region. Again, many issues that we're coming up against. First and foremost, when you're going to provide energy efficiency programs, you've got to provide an energy audit so that you can identify how much people are using and what their energy costs, what the retrofits look like, what the remodeling may look like. There's training involved in that. There's equipment, there's materials, there's cost issues always. There's financing issues. Do we provide the financing? Do we help folks get financing from the bank to put in the home the insulation and the windows and so on and so forth? So we're still working through a lot of those issues as well. Next slide. This is the final programmatic area that we're kind of focusing in on, and then we've got a few others. This is the biofuels corridor, and this is something that our committee chair, Robin Kinney, who's here tonight. Robin, can you raise your hand real fast? Identify yourself. Has really taken up the mantle on this one. He's got an extreme interest in this, and he has been working very diligently over the last several months to work with transportation managers, bus fleet managers, mayors, gas station managers, to identify methods, places where biofuels are available between Athens and Columbus, and try to get Route 33 designated as a biofuels corridor. The idea is to try to find gas stations where we can get regionally produced soy-based biofuels, because we've had a lot of discussions in the committee about corn-based ethanol and soy-based diesel and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of discussion going on out there about food versus fuels and why are we powering our Hummers with corn and all that kind of stuff. And so we've really lit as a committee on soy-based, regionally produced soy-based biofuels, and trying to identify a series of gas stations so that you could drive from Athens to Columbus, if you choose, on locally produced fuel. And so the big thing about that is that we are working right now, the announcement I want to make on that is that October 23rd, we're going to have a workshop at the Hocking College Energy Institute in Logan. That's being co-sponsored by Hocking College and Clean Fuels Ohio, which is a statewide organization designed to promote energy efficiency and regionally produced, locally produced fuels, biofuels. And that workshop is open to the public. You're welcome to come, and probably talk to Robin if you're interested in more details on that. The last slide that I've got is just a couple additional areas that we're very interested in, and that would be providing more educational programming and trying to identify methods for getting the word out about climate change. Greg gave a very, very good overview of the impacts of climate change and some of the consequences of climate change. That's very important. We want to talk about, we want to continue to get that word out, and working with other organizations to get that out is very important. And then lastly, the issue of green jobs is very important to rural action, and promoting sustainable, high-paying jobs that can move this region from a resource extractive industry, from coal-based jobs and oil and gas, which have really powered this area for decades, for 150 years or more. The problem with those industries is, those extractive industries, is they take the coal and all the money goes somewhere else. And what we're interested in is trying to find ways to promote regionally produced, sustainable jobs for the future. So with that, perfect timing. So, questions? Occasionally. We would, probably the best thing to do is to get your contact information to Robin at the end of the meeting tonight. We'll put you on the contact list. And the answer is we do intend to make these meetings more regular. We've been more regular in the past, and we've kind of fallen off over the summer, and we're just getting back into the swing of things.
Okay. Start over there. Go ahead. Oh, I don't need a microphone.
Two things. One, I came in late, I'm really sorry. That's the third thing. One is that the park and ride, I noticed that on 550, ODOT has put in a park and ride on 550 near 3313 and wondered, everybody seen that? Yeah, it's sweet. And I thought, wow, that must have come out of, these town meetings.
I'm unaware of that, but it's that. I'll be glad to take credit for that, though.
Everybody should just drive down there and park. And
Is that one of the sites? Milt is involved in this.
They already had some plans, and there was Bob Eichenberg was able to help push that along a little bit.
Okay.
Great. That's wonderful. So the second thing is you mentioned the energy audit idea. And I wanted to share that a company I worked with out in California in Berkeley they do a green energy tour of Berkeley, and one of their stops is this nonprofit business kind of thing that does energy audits. The unique thing, I think, is that they're working with kids like from a joint vocational school, and those kids are getting summer jobs at $12 an hour to go into people's houses and do energy audits. And I think that's a beautiful model for how we can employ some kids who aren't on the college track, but they can get headed for green jobs. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that's the thing about these kinds of jobs is that they're going to provide opportunities that don't exist right now, and I think we're very interested. I'd be interested in learning more about that.
I both went to Athens High School, and I think that it seems like you're not making it if you go to Tri-County Joint Vocational School, and we need to change that.
Right.
And say, wow, that's the place to go if you're going to do the work that needs to be done.
Right.
Not, I can't go to college.
Right, and we need to figure out who's going to provide the training for those kinds of jobs. But that's a huge issue, and I think actually that's probably a very good dovetail for tie into Sherry's presentation here in a second. Great.
Yeah, speaking of green jobs, I don't know if I can be at the meeting tomorrow evening, but I encourage you and the committee in regards to the 33 biofuel corridor to make contact with FSA, Farm Service Agency, and County Extension's offices all the way along that corridor, so that the potential of producers, in this case perhaps most likely soybeans, will have an idea, be tuned into what's going on, and start making plans in advance.
That's great. We'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm also glad that you mentioned the why are we powering our Hummers with what could be food, and that's a real big issue because this energy decline that we're experiencing isn't just getting home in our pocketbooks when we fill up the tank. It's also creating food insecurity all over the place, or exacerbated all over the world. So if we know that the statistics I've heard vary, but for example, if we turn all of our agricultural acreage into biofuel, we'd be covering about 16% of current demand for fuel. So, and we'd have no food. So, I mean, it's kind of one of those situations where maybe it's one of those things that we need to eke out a little bit in the short run, but really we need to be aware that this is not a solution long term. And that brings me to something that I understand has been talked about maybe is mass transit, public transportation. And I'm wondering what initiatives are going in that direction because people can't drive cars around.
That's probably a topic beyond the time we've got here, but I think that in terms of mass transit in Southeast Ohio, there's just not a whole lot of alternatives right now. There's a lot of talk these days about the 3C corridor and increasing high-speed rail between Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland. Looks like that's going to go through. I saw an article today that Amtrak came out with an estimate of $175 million to get the first portion of that built. That was higher than expected, though, so I'm not sure if that's going to move forward, but yeah.
Well, Muriel suggests that I ought to edge out in front of you. Okay. And thank you very much. Sure. And thank you, Scott, for your presentation. Our sixth presentation will be American Electric Power Energy Initiatives, Sherry Hubbard of AEP.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank Pamela for having tracked me down on my new responsibilities at AEP Ohio, and I'm really pleased to be here to talk about the energy efficiency initiatives that are coming together, hopefully to help not only in your homes but also in the businesses of those customers served by AEP Ohio, help you get to that low-hanging fruit, and I hope to share with you some of the things that are going on. Next slide. Really what has set the stage for this is the legislation in the state of Ohio, Senate Bill 221, has set the stage for the efficiency initiatives that you're going to see described a little bit more fully. I'm going to talk about those programs, and I'm going to touch briefly on renewable energy. Senate Bill 221 requires that 22.2% of our previous year's sales in kilowatt hours be reduced by 2025 through efficiency programs, and it requires a 7.75% reduction in demand. And demand is that kind of instantaneous demand or load on our power generation sources by 2018. That same legislation also set in place a requirement that 25% of the energy be supplied by an alternative energy resources, with half of that coming from renewable energy. There are indeed financial penalties associated with utilities that do not meet those incremental standards between now and the years by which we need to have accomplished them. But at the same time, the Commission has allowed for, and the law allows for, program cost recovery for these energy efficiency and demand reduction activities. That's a chart that just shows you that it's not just a number that we're all looking at and saying in 2025, voila, we will have reached those savings. That's the year-by-year percentages, year-over-year, that we must attain to get to those goals. The action plan that we have for energy efficiency and demand reduction, or peak demand reduction, really focuses on all customer classes, and I'm going to talk about something for residents and something for businesses. It equates to about $180 million in program costs over the next 3 years, and those are the costs that it would take to get to those 3-year targets cost effectively. And by that, there is a test that the Commission sets in place, and a test that the utilities use to determine that the investments that we're making indeed have a payback above and beyond the life of the cost of the measure. The programs that I'm going to describe are the result of a collaboration among key stakeholders. AEP Ohio has a collaborative, Duke has a collaborative, as does DP&L, but the stakeholders weigh in on the various programs that are designed and put forth. On the residential program side, these are now up and running, and if you're an AEP Ohio customer, the first thing is a compact fluorescent program. It's called the Smart Lighting Program. You can buy compact fluorescents at a discount immediately online by going to the gridsmartohio.com site, which you also see in the bottom right-hand corner of the slide. Also, retailers around our service area are offering discounts for bulbs that are 13 to 42 watt, basically the equivalent of 100 watt at the high end. Options that are dimmable and options that are 3-way bulbs. And they are estimated to get between 86 and 197 kilowatt hours of annual energy savings with those compact fluorescents. So there's substantial discounts available for residents to purchase compact fluorescents. The other big program that's already been released, you may have seen this, it's a refrigerator recycling program. Basically, it's for that old second refrigerator in your garage or in your basement that's operating. It may be storing supplies for part of the year, but not all of the year. Think of it as what do they call it, harvest gold and olive green refrigerators. Typically, they're those 10-year-old refrigerators or older that are not energy efficient. We're offering a $25 cash reward for each of those, and we will pick them up for free. and 97% of those refrigerators are recycled. So we know for sure that they're not just getting sold into the market at a discount. They actually are being recycled by a company called Jayco. And there's an 800 number there that you can actually call. You can get that number from our website. And I also have a little handout that I will have available if you want to take one and pass them along to friends and family. Next, please. We have more programs to come to get to those deeper efficiency type improvements that Scott mentioned or that the gentleman from OU mentioned earlier. They include retrofit efficiency on existing construction. We'll also be developing a low-income efficiency program and a new construction efficiency program. We have just rolled out our K-12 program. It's called E3 Smart. We, in fact, have 3 teachers from the Athens City Schools who are participating. It addresses the science standards grades 5 through 12, but what I really love about this program is it takes what kids learn in the classroom and takes it home with 14 energy-saving devices that AEP Ohio is providing to the students and to the families. And some of the responses we got from the pilot program that was conducted earlier were really enthusiastic expressions of, I feel empowered, I actually can go home and do something, and I've taught my family. And the other thing is it results in measurable savings. So the installation of 4 compact fluorescents, there's LED lighting in there, there's a switch plate gasket, a variety of things, and 7 lessons, which I won't go into here. Our goal is 180 schools. We had 165 as of yesterday. We're going to reach 13,500 students and homes in the AEP Ohio service territory. I'm really excited about that. And then on the business side, I'm going to breeze really quickly through 3 sets of programs, and I'm watching the time. So these are incentives that are out there right now for businesses in the service territory. There is a lighting incentive. There are custom incentives, and then something called self-direct. And just overall, they cover both the energy savings and actions to reduce that peak demand that I talked about. All the applications and details that you would want are at gridsmartohio.com, and we are providing technical assistance to help with these applications. Generally for lighting, it's just any non-residential application, whether it's a school or an office building or a warehouse. There are set incentives, certain amounts already specified for a variety of different lighting types. There are some requirements that it has to meet certain specifications. We pay up to half of the cost based on availability, and you can see they range from $2 per CFL to I can't quite read that from here, but thank you, $350 per kilowatt for T8, T5 fixtures. The custom program is kind of for everything else. Think of everything else that you might do in the future for your business, for your efficiency, to improve efficiency. And these are incentives to pay for equipment, to pay for industrial process improvements. You can do a retrofit, and we also have a program for new investments, so it's for purchasing new efficient equipment. Measures have to be in place for 5 years because what we're looking at is getting longer-term savings for the dollars that are being invested. All business customers are eligible. Again, funds based on availability, looking for paybacks within the 1 to 7 years. So if you have a hurdle rate that says, we're not going to pay for anything over 2 years, we can help you invest in improvements that might be a little bit longer payback than your business might normally want to take on. Again, up to 50% of the project cost. And then finally, this one is for investments in efficiency that have already been made. So the commission has given utilities the okay pending their final approval on a project-by-project basis. Senate Bill 221 lets customers submit previously completed energy efficiency projects. So they have to have been done sometime from January 1st, 2006 up until June 1st of 2009. So that's the window. The work's already been done. This is for the larger customers, 700,000 kilowatt hours a year or more, or a national or regional account with multiple locations. And the customer has to provide the energy management specialist knowledge, if you will, for putting the plan together and having already invested in the equipment. What happens, there are two options. The first option is that there is an incentive payment available to the business. It's up to, I believe it's up to 75% of what incentive would be available to you for a future project. So it's not quite as high an incentive as if you're investing in a future project. But what it does is you stay in the rider. In other words, once the commission approves what the rider would be, you stay in and pay that. The other option is, thank you, that you're exempt from the rider as long as your calculated investment is greater than what your rider would have been. Pretty complicated, but details are at gridsmart.ohio.com. And my really last slide is just, we are working on a renewable energy program at AEP Ohio. It's going to be technology-based. Again, we're coming up with something for all customer classes. If that program is approved, it'll be launched in 2009. We will be hosting 3 sites on the solar tour, the Green Energy Ohio Solar Tour, October 3rd, 2009, our site in Newark, our site in Marietta, and in Groveport will be on that tour. So I think with that, there's a picture of the website, and I'll entertain questions. Thank you. Thanks.
First off, the E3 program where the school kids get the training and then come home. My older son did that last winter, and it was really great. He loved it, and it was one of those things where I thought I should write a letter to the editor and never got around to it. But I think that's one of the neat programs that you guys have, and it's a good start. With regards to the business programs that you have, why are churches, universities, government buildings, nonprofits not also on the eligible list?
They are eligible, and my understanding is they are eligible. It's any non-residential building is eligible.
Okay, you and Mike should get together.
We're already working on it.
Good.
Yeah, yeah.
What about LED lighting? When is it coming on?
LED lighting is one of the measures that incentives will be provided. For example, LED traffic lighting for communities. We will provide incentives for LED traffic lighting and also LED exits.
Domestic?
At this point in time, we're not offering any incentives, but we do include them in the kit of energy-saving devices that we send home for education purposes. So, we recognize the viability of the technology. And so we see it for larger scale type installations.
Will you be helping with home energy audits?
When we roll out the retrofit program, that's something we'll look at very closely. It's something that we'll look at with that program.
I have 2 questions. One is very short, I think. You mentioned up there that there are 3 sites AEP is going to be participating with the solar tour on October 3rd. Where are those sites? Are any of those in our area? And if so, where are they?
Yes, there is a site in Marietta. I'm sorry, in Athens. You know what? There are sites in Athens, not AEP sites, but there are certainly other sites on the solar tour. And, Jeff is going to correct me, and I am very happy to stand corrected. Please.
The AEP building right here in Athens does have solar on it, and that is on the tour. So it's Newark and AEP Athens.
That's right. It's not Marietta. It's Athens, Newark, and Groveport. Thank you very much for that clarification.
We're talking about the AEP plan out or the office out on 682. Okay. My more general question has to do with the sort of larger picture of AEP
and other electric utilities over the years. Some time ago, probably 25 years ago at least, we passed a money for experimental programs to be done in, mostly they were being done in electric generating plants. And there was money every year for about 20 years. It was my impression that those experiments were all tried, and some of them worked quite well, but often they were scaled back or not used anymore because it was cheaper to, burn more coal and send more gas up into the atmosphere and so forth, and not do these more detailed ways. I was wondering what you could tell us about projects that are still going on for AEP to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and whether some of those projects from the past are still being used.
Thank you for the question. I am aware of a demonstration project that we're looking at for smart grid homes up in, I believe it's northeast Columbus area of the AEP Ohio service territory. I am not knowledgeable about some of the past research that's been done by the company. I know that we work with Electric Power Research Institute on a variety of initiatives, and I do understand that we have an interest in looking at carbon sequestration, clean coal type technologies, but that very high level of overview is as much detail as I know. I have been with the company since August 1st, and so I'm learning this, and I think it's a great question, and I will go back and get information for you, and if you give me contact information, or if I can share that with Scott, I'll be happy to do that.
I think we've hit the 6 minutes, and soon we'll have the general, I don't say free-for-all, just general law. Thank you. Oh, actually, we have an announcement, and before we open the floor to your 2 minutes, why I'd like to call on Terry Bannock for an announcement, and she's with the Athens Climate Action Plan Committee. Terry Bannock. Penny, I'm sorry. Pardon me.
It looks like Terry and it sounds like Penny. So I'm here to announce the Climate Action Plan for Athens, a new committee, and I'm here to invite you to join the committee. So I've got some sign-up sheets here I'm going to circulate, and as well as the resolution that kind of made this all happen. So resolution number R0307 to reduce global warming emissions, and I've got sign-up sheets here.
Tenny, would you like me to distribute? I'll distribute those for you.
I'm sorry? Yes, well, that's what I'm here to do. Okay, so. Okay, so this Athens Climate Action Plan Committee, Athens CAP, we're going to call it. And if you will join me, we will figure out what it is that Athens can do to reduce further their carbon footprint. We're going to be reviewing what the city has done to date. This was all, again, Dana said earlier, done as through the inspiration of the Cool Cities initiative that the Sierra Club presented to the city. And let's see. Our goal is to reduce global warming emissions in the city of Athens to 10% by 1990 levels by 2017. So we'll be reviewing what the city has already done. We'll be getting information from the city about what works here in Athens, and then we'll be making recommendations. We'll be reviewing the climate action plans of other cities that have been successful through the Cool Cities Initiative. Essentially, that's what we're doing. I've had one informal meeting with Lorraine McCosker, who was the Sierra Club head for the Cool Cities Initiative, and I'm hoping we're going to see a lot of you get involved. There will be work to do. I don't know exactly what that work will be, but we're going to start by brainstorming what the ideas are and what actually would work here. It might mean policy changes. It might mean specific strategies. The emphasis, again, is on energy efficiency. So I hope you'll all join us.
When is the next meeting?
We have not formed the committee yet, so sign up, and then one of us will be in touch with you. That's it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Tenny. I'll give you a moment to organize your thoughts, and the purpose of that is simply that I think all of you have a little schedule for the day, and at the bottom you see also in capital letters, invite you to leave with us your comments on the series of town meetings, and so I'll just mention that. And then also the committee which organized this is so modest that when it drew up the schedule, it did not put recognition of itself there. So I'd like to ask the committee members, will you stand up, please? And here's Milt Greek standing up. Come on, who else? That's Carol Patterson back there, Beverly Flanagan here, and Muriel Grimm. And let's see, who else? Is June Holly? Did I see you here earlier? I met on your front porch one time and got sunburned, so I know you're part of it. Any other committee members I missed? Well, thanks all of you for putting that together. So now our committee's proposal is, if you have an interest in one of these topics, you've got 2 minutes to talk to all of us, ask a question, and make your question short enough to get an answer from somebody within that 2 minutes. Yes, sir, that hand went up first, and here comes Beverly. Actually, that's probably a good idea. Why don't we invite you to line up behind Beverly, and she'll feed you the microphone. Well, what we don't know is how many people would like to ask questions or have it 2 minutes. That'll probably work just about right. And so the question is how Beverly can ration you. And so, why don't you line them up here? Second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. How's that? Okay, sir, the floor is yours.
If I could, I'd like to make a few comments on what AEP is doing, and I might add that I'm a retired AEP employee. They have a new high-tech coal burning plant under construction in Arkansas, and it will be part of the facility in Arkansas and Texas. And it produces more kilowatt hours, burning less coal and less pollutants. They have 2 wind farms in Texas. Each one of those wind farms is approximately 16 square miles. That's like taking half of Canaan Township and putting 500-foot towers in it. I think they supply like 35,000 residents each. So AEP is doing some high-tech stuff, and I would suggest go to AEP.com, and they have links to a lot of sites plus what they are doing themselves. So you get an objective look, not just their look, but an objective look from a number of sites, including the home wind power sites, et cetera, and that gives you a good overview of the possibilities of electric. We think around here, as AEP being the coal-fired guys that burn coal, but they're always researching other stuff.
Thank you. We'll hand it to Beverly, and she can pass the baton.
Marty Zen. Someone, maybe Brandon, brought up about public transportation, so just very briefly. I am working on a county public transportation advisory committee, which does have some action plan in place to help extend public transportation out to the county outside of the city. We are also working in close cooperation with the City of Athens, who has supported our efforts to hire a mobility manager to assist with a number of efforts in the public transportation area. So if there are any of you who are particularly interested in public transportation, check with me after. Also just want to say that City Council's City Transportation Committee is very active. I don't know if Chris Nicely is here. She's the chair of that. But apart from the general bus and et cetera public transportation, it has a very active bike and pedestrian subcommittee. And they are doing a lot of work right now to make Athens City a lot more bike and pedestrian friendly. So there's a lot going on in that area too.
Thanks, Marty. Jeff Greenfield. I really appreciate everybody coming here. Real quick, in case you missed it in Sherry's slideshow, Green Energy Ohio is once again hosting the solar tour. It's a great opportunity to meet people with solar, see solar installed at businesses and residences, and find out for yourself how it looks, how it performs here in Ohio, etc. It's going to be Saturday, October 3rd. This year it's a self-directed tour. So the best way to learn about it is greenenergyohio.org and find the details and get the map, etc. My question is this. The slide with the Venn diagram was great, and it had solar in a category that was green and lower greenhouse reductions, but wasn't cost effective. My question, Mike, is were you considering power purchase agreements as a structure for financing solar on a university or a nonprofit as a strategy to solve that conundrum?
We're doing everything we can. We have actually 5 small arrays on campus already. We've got a 10 kilowatt out for the composter and 4 others throughout. I don't know the history of it, but we are looking at doing more solar and adding it in. It's just one of those that when you look at the Venn diagram, it costs more right now. We figure the price is going to come down in the future anyway. It's going to be more. It'll get towards that triple point that we're trying to get.
We need to talk and update your numbers. And also, our company installed a little one on the Lausch heating plant years ago, so we can add an arrow there. Anyway.
Thank you. Come up here.
All right, Chuck.
Park my cane. I don't hear. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
I don't hear so well, so sometimes when I listen to you, I have to put my headset on. But first of all, I want to thank you all for doing this. I'm speaking as an old-timer who is a retired engineering professor here who's been interested in these ideas for 40 years, usually with no one interested in what I had to say. And I just want to thank you for this organization and for your doing these kinds of things. It is a bit hopeful. But I had a question for you, my friend. Are you Mr. Gebke?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't quite understand. I thought you said you couldn't be here or something when you made your presentation. But I wanted to ask you, one of the things that my students and I did 30 years ago, we read a law called PURPA, the Public Utilities Regulatory Act of 1978. And one of the things that law urged the public utility commissions in the whole state of Ohio, in the whole country to do, was to encourage cogeneration wherever they could. So my students and I studied that here at university, and we found that Ohio University, we made a report in 1982, was burning coal and making steam at 150 pounds per square inch, and then they ran it through 2 giant pressure-reducing valves to 25 pounds per square inch so that it could could get it into the steam tunnels and take it out to heat the buildings around the campus. My students and I recommended that they, instead of wasting all that 150 pounds to 25 pounds, they were looking for efficiency, as Greg Kramer was talking about. We need to do the efficiency mission. We looked at this and we recommended that they buy a simple steam generator and take the pressure at high pressure into the steam, run the steam turbine, make electricity, and reduce the production, the consumption of electricity in this university by 12%. Now, the university didn't do anything about that until a new vice president came in. Gary North. Gary North knew some thermodynamics. I'm an engineer myself. I know a little bit about thermodynamics. Gary North came in 1994, 12 years after we recommended. Meanwhile, the university lost about $2.5 million of energy purchase savings and all kinds of less carbon going out into the environment, into the atmosphere, less pollutants going out, because the utility, whom we wouldn't buy the electricity from, AEP, did not have to burn so much coal because we were saving it by doing this more efficiently in Athens. Now, my question for you, my friend, is what's going with cogeneration at Ohio University right now? And if it isn't going, why not? Because it was installed in 1994 and it ran for a little while. I saw it going, but I haven't kept up on it. I want to know what's happening to it. If you can't help me, I'm going to talk to you afterwards and find out, okay?
Let's talk afterwards.
You don't know what's going on with it, huh?
I've been here since January. I know a little about it, but we'll talk. We'll talk right after this, and I'll find out what you're looking for.
Okay. Okay. Well, anyway, I do appreciate, thank you for getting a bit organized.
About 3 weeks ago, I got a letter from Dayton Power and Light. We have solar array at our house, asking if we were interested in selling power to them because of the new law that you were talking about. And I'm wondering, is this what's going to happen? Or are we going to suddenly get into a bidding war among the utilities in the state of Ohio who are contacting individual homeowners to ask to buy power from them if they have a solar array?
How much did they offer?
I don't know.
One of the approaches to meeting the requirements for providing alternative energy is something called renewable energy credits that utilities can purchase, and then that helps us meet our goals. So if they're contacting you, it's because they're interested in the value of that clean attribute from your solar panel. So you've got the electricity thing going on already, but what they're interested in is the clean attribute of that solar panel. And I think that there's going to be more interest in that. There are companies, not just utility companies, but there are third-party companies that may be looking at these renewable energy credits. So I think these are some of the numbers that are going to help make the economics for solar and other types of alternative energy is the value of this clean attribute. So I wish I had a solar array on my house and somebody was bidding for my solar, my clean energy.
Do it.
Hi, my name is Badger Johnson. There's some new research going on with hydropower. The term that I've heard used is hydrokinetic power. They're little turbines that go underwater, like at the bottom of a river. And they're really cool because you can scale them up or down, by installing more or less of them. They don't alter the natural flow of the river, which is something that the locks and dams have done. And it's still an R&D, and I just wanted to know what AEP is doing to support that research, and if y'all are thinking about implementing it on the Ohio.
I can't answer the question in terms of what type of research is being done. I am aware that we do have one hydro power project that's about 500 kilowatts. And I don't know where that project is, but in preparing for this upcoming solar tour, I did learn that. I'm happy to try to find more information for you about it, and I certainly, since it's a town hall meeting, perhaps if someone else has more information, they can come up and answer that question if we have the time. But
sure. Thank you. Is that a dam?
Scott, I think.
Is that hydroelectric project a dam?
I don't believe it's a dam, but I don't really know for sure. At 500 kilowatts, it's a fairly small project. I think Scott.
I just chime in there and say one more thing that I mentioned that less than 1% of the renewable energy, the electricity that's generated in the state of Ohio is from renewables. Most of that comes from two hydroelectric facilities on the Ohio River. Those are owned by American Municipal Power, which is not a investor-owned utility, so it's not covered under Senate Bill 221. It's literally a series of municipalities that have joined together to form a single entity, and they're in the process of installing, I think, 5 more hydroelectric facilities on the Ohio at the existing locks and dams. So that's going to be a huge project, and will increase their renewable portfolio quite a bit. This is the same American Municipal Power that's building the coal-fired plant in Meg. So they've got a mixed bag of electric generation, but they are trying to increase their renewable portfolio as well.
Let me just note, we've had about 5, and I see 6 people in line, so probably by the time you 5 you go through, we will have reached our allocated time. Otherwise, we'll have to take up a collection maybe for another hour and 2 probably. Go ahead, Lois.
Right. My name's Lois Lee, and I've been interested for many years in energy production and cleanup, etc. As you might guess from what I said before. And I want to know more. I see Jeff is in line, and maybe he's in line to tell us something more about the solar tour. But what does this mean, self-directed? Does this mean that you go out, you go online, you find out where these places are, and you call up these people and you say, I want to come out there? Or have you set up some sort of a thing where they're going to be expecting guests all day or whatever? Is that right? Guests all day.
Yeah, I'll really quickly explain it.
Okay, good. I wanted also to mention, we don't always have people come right near us where we can talk to them about problems. The Ohio Mineland Partnership Group, which has been working on abandoned mineland reclamation for years and years, is going to be meeting October 13th and 14th at Burr Oak, which makes it the closest it's been here in a number of years. I don't have more information now, but I do have it at home if anyone wants to know more about that particular Ohio Mineland Partnership. And thank goodness they did put into the federal legislation continuation of money from tons of coal sold, in order to continue the program to clean up the abandoned minelands.
My name is Jim Corby, and I just have one quick question for Mr. Gosney, Councilmember Gosney, and also to Mr. Gebeke. It seems like there's a lot of great initiatives going on, both on the town level and the university level. What I see happening in university towns a lot is that there's this great divide. And I'm just curious if there's any formal collaborative efforts between the university and the town to make change, to work towards energy efficiency, work towards the future in general, as far as I'm concerned.
You nailed it. There's often a divide. I don't know that it's a divide. It's a separation of responsibility and resources. I can't say that there's no formal working relationship at the moment, but I do see Sonia Marcus many places that I go to talk about these issues and work on them. So we are in regular contact at least.
I think we could say the same thing. We've met, I think we've talked to the mayor at different times. We've got different meetings that we've set up. I believe on the President's Climate Commitment, the committee for that has city input on that committee to help with our greenhouse gas thing that goes on there for that part of it and some different areas. We've got city representation on several different committees that work with the university right now, and we're trying to partner with the city in different areas there. I think we're talking to them about recycling right now, even down to that level for recycling within the city and the university at the same time, and partnering on something for that. So there are talks going on between the city and the university all the time.
And I might add real quick to City Council, as a lot of you may sort of alluded to, is meeting quarterly or loosely quarterly with President Davis. I know that the mayor also meets monthly, correct, with President Davis. There's ideas that have been generated and talked about. More needs to be done, I agree.
Park and ride and transportation issues would be an obvious place to work together. They do. My name is Sue Riggi. I work for the university, and I have a question for you. Several people have talked tonight about energy efficiency, and I've never heard anything coming from the university to staff. I wouldn't know for sure about whether it goes to students about conservation. And the most egregious example, which we, as those of us who don't work Baker Center have control over, is that lighting in Baker Center goes on all the time with no light sensors to switch it on and off. But there's been, despite all this time and the university being a member for 2 years of the President's Initiative on Global Warming, there's never any encouragement to turn off the light, turn off the computer, turn off the power strip. Where is that leadership?
I'll get with Sonia on that. She does have a program. I'll get her contact with you right after this. We can talk. She's got some programs that she's been doing and some different things that way that she's had out there in the past that I know.
Yeah, so the word's not getting out.
And I'll get your name and we'll make sure we talk.
As promised, Green Energy Ohio is a self-directed tour. No one's getting big buses. It's not all at once. You'll be able to pick your destinations, and the homeowners and business owners have agreed to make it open for limited hours. So go to the website and take a look at and plan your route. It's the opposite, in my opinion, of what we should be doing. I like the public transportation approach before, and there was a lot of good discourse and learning in between the sites. What I wanted to speak to was one of our customers talked about this SREC letter from Dayton Power and Light, and I had hinted about the economics have changed. The utilities have a requirement to build solar panels, to build solar plants, and add solar to their mix. And they can do it in several ways. AP has signed a contract to build a 12,000 kilowatt solar array in Wyandotte. It's going to be the largest east of the Mississippi. That's one way that they're going to do that. But then the other utilities, as well as AEP, will probably be also meeting their obligation by buying solar credits from private projects, either businesses or homeowners. And there's been a lot of debate and questions about, are these like carbon credits, and is this greenwashing, and is this, if I retire my carbon credit, is that better than selling it? It's a very important question. In Ohio, because of this requirement that the utilities build it or pay you to build it, in my opinion, it's a good thing to take the money from the utility and build a system. We've got the opportunity to build a massive solar system on all the appropriate buildings at Ohio University cost effectively with the mixture of tax credits, depreciation, low-cost financing, and this new ingredient makes it critical, the solar credits. And the utilities all fight for the chance to buy these credits. The market price goes up, and the project works. So SRECs, or Solar Renewable Energy Credits, is a new part of solar energy economics. And the letter went out as just the beginning of this. There's going to be much more back and forth. The Holzer Clinic a pretty good leadership position putting a pretty beefy solar array on their new facility here. They did so with marginal economics and a long-term payback. Now with the solar renewable energy credits that they've contracted for, the economics are significantly better, and they're excited about expanding it. And so it's an exciting program, as the intent of the state law, Senate Bill 221, to force the utilities to either build it or buy it from you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Way back, my name is Rick. Way back when we had that map up there that showed the amount of sunshine that Ohio gets and the rest of the states get, I had a question way back then, but we ran out of time, so I was told to wait until this time. Okay. So here's my question. But, I've heard that even though Ohio doesn't get a lot of sunshine, relatively speaking, to some of the other states, that we still get more than Germany. And I've heard that, I've also heard, well, you hear about that, but I've also heard that Germany is a lot more advanced in the amount and percentage of electricity that they get from solar energy. So I'm wondering if anybody knows, like, on that, with those amounts or something, like how we compare with Germany, and in like 1 minute, I guess, is there like any lesson we might learn from them? I guess.
Yeah, you were nodding. You want to?
All I can say is you're right. Germany has done a huge amount to get solar out. I've been lucky enough to see some of it there. You see it on all kinds of houses in some cities, and we have more than they do. So we can certainly at least get to the point that they are right now.
I'll just jump on that and say that one of the reasons why Germany has so much solar installed over there is because they have a system of feed-in tariffs, which allows you to buy and then sell your electricity back to the electric company, and you could overproduce. And so there were a lot of incentives for increasing solar and wind and other renewables in Germany. In fact, they reached, I think that 20% of their electricity comes from renewables. Because of the feed-in tariffs and the very liberal incentives that were placed on increasing their renewable portfolio. In fact, just to tie into Ohio, First Solar, which is one of the largest flat panel solar array producers in the world, is located in Perrysburg, Ohio. They produced a lot of flat panel, and they were shipping it all over the place. So they built a new plant in Germany. And so those green energy jobs that I was referring to earlier are over there and not here. So I'll leave you with that.
Thank you. Well, I think it's probably time that we should wind this down, and I certainly want to thank all of our panelists for coming. I want to thank all of you for coming.